All right, let's start early. Shout out to everyone in the chat. This is the night flight. We got a few boxing stories to talk about first, then we can open it up to whatever topics you guys want to discuss. Big up MT, Set, Aku, Josh, June Sports, Julius, Swifty, Andy P, Kieran, Marlo, Bullex, Set, Connor, Jimbo. You got Warts in the chat. Let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. Danvers, yes, yes. All right, we're all good. And Circle says, have you seen the petition to strip John Jones? It's got like 150K signatures. You know, the whole John Jones thing, refusing to fight Tom Aspinall. This shows that UFC, because for the longest time, I don't want to get into the whole UFC versus boxing war, but for the longest time, UFC fans, and I like UFC, right? But a lot of hardcore UFC fans felt the need to always slag off boxing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you like your sport, that's cool. MMA is a great sport. But why do you always feel the need to slag off boxing in order to big up MMA? But anyway, one of the things they used to say was, in UFC in particular, you always get the fights that you want. There's no standoffs between top fighters. They make everything happen. Well, this is an example of that not being true, innit? Because they can't make this fight between John Jones and Tom Aspinall. It's been going on for months. So, yeah, let's get on to some boxing topics here first. Some of you guys may know about this. Bruno Saras demands loss overturned immediately after VADA says Jaime Munguia tested positive. VADA informed all relative parties Wednesday that Jaime Munguia's A sample returned adverse analytical finding for exogenous origin of testosterone metabolites following a urine sample on May 4 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, when he defeated Bruno Saras, sources told The Ring. Munguia has 10 days to request analysis of his B sample for exogenous origin of testosterone metabolites. Am I pronouncing that right? Exogenous, yeah, genus. Exogenous, I think it is. Of testosterone metabolites. If his B sample also returns an adverse finding for the banned substance, Munguia faces suspension and the result of his decision victory could be overturned to a no contest. So that juicy beef, that juicy Mexican beef seems to have, and I'm obviously being facetious with that, that juicy Mexican beef seems to have reared its ugly head again. Bruno Saras said, I'm shocked by the news that Jaime Munguia tested positive for a banned substance. There's no place in boxing for cheating. The sport is dangerous enough already. I went to Mexico and knocked out Munguia fair and square in December, and I was gracious enough to give him a rematch in May. He knew he could not beat me on a level playing field. I trust that the result will be overturned immediately. What do you guys think about this? And Circle says he's on that Canelo diet. Yeah, he's on that juicy beef. Jimbo Jones says Reynoso needs to be investigated. Yeah, because Canelo got caught on that juicy beef as well, right? XMB says Reynoso runs a clinic. Is that right? I mean, are you being facetious or does he literally run a clinic? Seth says, as great as John is, he's always been the guy who wants everything on his terms. And if he can't, he always throws a hissy fit. The guy's always had self-doubt, but his talent and skill carried him. Oh, you're messing. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if Haney Munguia can't come up with an explanation for this that is satisfactory, and if his B sample also tests positive, then of course they got to overturn the decision, the result. Will they run it back for a third time? I doubt it. Ben says Crawford claims he's only getting $10 million for Canelo. I'm not surprised by that because it's quite well known that the Saudis have started tightening the purse strings now, which was inevitable. They were always going to. They were always going to rein it in and tighten the purse strings. Shout out to Carlos over there in Melbourne, Australia. They were always going to tighten the purse strings. The people who thought that the Saudis were going to continue spending frivolously indefinitely bought into this whole narrative that their foray into boxing was some kind of lark. It's never been a lark. They've got an objective. And again, there were loads of people that used to argue with me about the Saudis not caring about profiting from boxing. Of course they want to profit from boxing. People seem to think that these like rich Arabs are just totally stupid. That's the way they've been characterized. And everything's just a lark. Nah. They're trying to diversify their economy. And that's why they're investing in all these Western sports. So yeah, they come in heavy, spend it a lot initially in order to corner the market, right? To control the market. But once they have it, that's when they tighten the purse strings, just like any other business. So I'm not at all surprised that Terence Crawford isn't getting some crazy purse, you know, like Tyson Fury got for the Usyk fights and even Usyk got for the second Tyson. I'm not surprised. Ben says Canelo is supposedly getting $175 million though. I wonder whether they'll try to recoup some of that money after Canelo's last horrible performance. Imagine he puts in another horrible performance. Shout out to Hyro. XMB says, Mexican meat, nasal spray, eggs. I'm putting a bet that it was baked beans. Aku says oil money's drying up. Well, I think they got, quite a few decades left yet. But rather than leave it to the last minute, you want to start diversifying in advance, innit? So that's apparently what they're doing. Ben says, I heard Teo turned down the Boots fight. Shout out to Jake. We'll come on to Teo actually, because look at this here. This is Dan Rayfield via X. Per 3 sources involved, Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney was agreed on Tuesday night, but not signed. And that was going to be August 16th in Riyadh, 145 pounds, so a catch weight. But the fight is now in jeopardy after Teofimo's tweet storm. What tweet storm, you may ask? This tweet storm. You can see here. Teofimo Lopez added Turki Al-Sheikh and called him a dictator. And you see the way he spelled the word there. That tweet has now apparently been deleted. Then he put this Photoshop poster up, which says Yalla Habibi at the top, King of the Jungle, Al-Sheikh versus Teofimo. How about that? So Teofimo Lopez crashing out on Turki Al-Sheikh. And then he put a video out after doing all this, saying that Turki Al-Sheikh has fired him. And you do wonder what all this is about? Because Turkey's the one making all these fights. Why would a fighter crash out like this and start calling him out and what have you? I have to imagine it comes down to money. Maybe Teofimo Lopez was insulted by the money he was offered, or the deal he was offered, and decided to, I don't know, try and put public pressure on Turki Al-Sheikh by calling him names. Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see how Turki Al-Sheikh responds to this, because he's been given instructions, presumably, by the Saudi government to go out there and make these fights and put on events and what have you. Would he be willing to just freeze Teofimo Lopez out now because of the public insults? I mean, it weren't so long ago that Shakur Stevenson threw a couple of insults at Turki Al-Sheikh. But then he apologized a few days later, and it's apparently all good again. Will we see the same from Teofimo Lopez? Because obviously, as a boxing fan, it's disappointing for this fight to nearly get made, and then, again, Teo to crash out and, quote-unquote, get fired by Turki Al-Sheikh. Yeah, I know Devin Haney's a runner. He looked terrible in his last fight, looked scared to death. But whatever the case may be with, where he's at mentally, I still would like to see these guys fight. They're supposed to be fighting. They're young guys in their 20s. So let's see Teofimo Lopez versus Devin Haney. Now, one way of looking at this, and I don't necessarily share this perspective, but some people might say that Teo didn't really want to fight. So that's why he crashed out, to have plausible deniability, basically, for not wanting to fight. But you look at Devin Haney's last performance and you think, well, why would Teo do that? What would he have to be afraid of? In fact, Devin Haney's last two performances, obviously Ryan Garcia was on stuff, but still, Devin Haney took a lot of damage, and that really happened. You can't undo the damage that was done to him physically and psychologically. And then last time out, he ran all night, against Ramirez like he was scared to death. Shook, scared to death, scared to look. But what say you? What do you guys think about this situation? Shout out to the Sweet Maths. He says, does Crawford have a longer arm length compared to Mayweather? A welterweight, who wins, Crawford or Mayweather? He's got a longer reach. Crawford's reach, I believe, is 74 inches. Last I checked. That is a longer reach than Mayweather. Does he have longer arms? I want to say he probably does. Yeah, he probably does. But who would win? I've been asked this question several times, and I might give a different answer every time I'm asked it, to be honest, because it's a very, very good fight. It's surely a very technical fight. I think last time I said I'd go for Mayweather. And for now, I'd stick with Mayweather maybe on points. Dwyer often talks about these two fighters, Mayweather and Crawford. The differences, the similarities, and so on. Crawford obviously is a more aggressive fighter at welterweight. He goes for the knockout. He tries to hurt you. He's not just satisfied going the distance like Mayweather was. And he's a very intelligent fighter in the ring. He's got a great boxing brain, as Mayweather did. But Mayweather was definitely a sharper puncher. Not necessarily a harder puncher, but just a faster puncher. The way his right hand would come out, his left hook, faster than Terence Crawford's shots. Would that make the difference in terms of the winner and the loser? At this stage, or at least on this day, I'm going to say Mayweather on points in a very tight fight. But again, ask me another day, or another week, another month. I might give you a different answer after contemplating some more. But what do you think? The Sweet Maths. Do you reckon Crawford would have won? You're almost talking about Eubank Senior. We'll come on to that. But yeah, Teofimo Lopez crashing out. And unfortunately, it looks like because of his crash out, we won't get the Devin Haney fight. Unless maybe he apologizes, patches things up, makes peace with Turkey. We'll see. All right, next bit of news here. Pulev versus Michael Hunter is on. This fight was in negotiation for a while, but it went to a purse bid, and Don King, of all people, has won the purse bid for this fight with a bid of $1.1 million. So these guys, by heavyweight boxing standards, will be fighting for chicken change. Obviously, for the average citizens like us, that's a hell of a lot of money. But for boxers of this level at heavyweight, yeah, it's chicken change. That's got to be split between the two fighters. Anyway, Don King has won the purse bid. He's got the rights to promote WBA regular heavyweight title fight between Pulev and Michael Hunter. And by the way, Don King is Hunter's promoter. The fight will take place on August the 23rd at a site to be determined in the United States. The Pulev Hunter winner will be ordered to face the victor of the June 7 WBA interim title fight between Fabio Wardley and Justice Haney. So yeah, that's the little mini WBA regular belt heavyweight tournament that they've put on. Michael Hunter is, or maybe was, a very talented heavyweight. He gave Usyk one of his best fights. He lost, obviously, on points, but he gave Usyk plenty to think about and won quite a few rounds in the early stages. He obviously beat Martin Bakole, gave him his first loss, stopped him, and that was not the fat version of Martin Bakole today. That was a Martin Bakole who was actually in shape. That fight took place at York Hall several years ago. He performed fantastically well that night, Michael Hunter. He also beat the likes of Sergey Kuzmin, when Kuzmin was still fairly dangerous. Dropped him. Did a better job on Kuzmin than Bakole did. Then he went on to have that draw with Alexander Povetkin, which was a close fight. Hunter kind of shot his load, pause, in the early going in that fight. He kind of had Povetkin rocking a little bit. But he gassed himself out trying to finish Povetkin off. I mean, Povetkin never went down, right? But Hunter seemed to think he was going to get the knockout. So he really went for it early and then kind of gassed out, and Povetkin was able to get himself back into the fight. It ended up being a draw. I still think he was a little hard done by. It wasn't some horrible robbery or anything. It was a close fight, but I do feel like Hunter probably did deserve to get the nod. In fact, I think it was that fight where Povetkin had a really deformed glove. You guys remember that one? One of his gloves was like properly deformed. I mean, from the beginning. Not in the 10th round or whatever after breaking the gloves down through hitting Michael Hunter. But no, from the beginning, he had one really deformed glove. It didn't help him any, but yeah, just remember that little bit of trivia. So Michael Hunter, very talented fighter, put in some good performances over the years. But then he was supposed to fight Filip Hrgović. And there was a purse bid and Michael Hunter pulled out, didn't go ahead with the fight. It was a very strange number as well. I wish somebody would ask Eddie Hearn and Kalle Sauerland why they bid that particular amount. It was a very, 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 very odd number. And it's not the first time, or excuse me, not the last time that have bid these really odd numbers. But Michael Hunter, whether he was spooked by the odd number or whether he was enticed by Triller, who offered him a load of money for what was supposed to be easy fights, he went in a different direction. And since then, he's basically been blackballed by Hearn and maybe other people in the boxing industry. He nearly did a deal with Boxer a while ago, maybe a couple years back, and he was going to fight Hughie Fury. But on that occasion, Hughie Fury pulled out. Surprise, surprise. He's like the king of pullouts. And Hunter's been in the wilderness ever since. The situation with Triller didn't really work out well for him because he had that rematch with Jerry Forrest, which went horribly wrong. He was lucky to get a draw in that fight. I guess he underestimated Jerry Forrest, or maybe he's just deteriorated, because the first time they fought, Hunter won without any issue. Maybe it was a combination of Jerry Forrest also improving since their first fight. But yeah, he saw Triller as like his meal ticket. He was going to make a load of money, because at the time, Triller were handing out silly money. But that didn't last long. I don't know how much Mike Wantner made from it. But after the Triller days, Hunter has drifted off into complete obscurity. Total obscurity. And I'm not sure how good he is anymore. I think his best days are probably behind him. With all that being said, he should still beat Kubrat Pulev. You know, Pulev is an old man. He's not a puncher. He doesn't move around the ring particularly quick anymore. Hunter, if he's even 70% of what he used to be, should be able to get the win, particularly in the United States. But what say you? I think I saw a super chat come in there. Shout out to Ben for the super chat. He says, can you name a welterweight in any era that you're positive would wipe the floor with Crawford? Wipe the floor? I don't know whether I go as far as say wipe the floor, but as I said a little earlier on in the stream, I'll probably pick Mayweather to beat him. Would I pick Ray Leonard to beat Crawford? I'm not sure I'll pick Ray Leonard to beat him. It's all about styles make fights. So I've always felt that Tommy Hearns would beat Mayweather. I've always felt confident about that. But I'm not so confident that Tommy Hearns would beat Crawford, you know, because again, Crawford's more aggressive. He's willing to take chances. Obviously, he's never come across anyone that hits remotely as hard as Tommy Hearns, or had those type of dimensions. The guy was 6'1", 78-inch reach, had a freight train of a right hand. Crawford's never come up against anything like that. So, obviously, every prediction is a guess, but predictions are informed to some extent by previous opponents that these fighters have faced. But when a fighter has never faced anything like the guy that you are matching him up with in a fantasy fight context, it's more sketchy. So I want to say Mayweather I would pick over Crawford. I may not even pick Tommy Hearns over him, just because of the fact that Crawford is an aggressive welterweight. He can punch with both hands. He's clever. He might be able to do a similar thing to what Sugar Ray Leonard did to Tommy Hearns in their first fight. But then again, Ray Leonard was a bigger guy than Terence Crawford, naturally, and also in terms of height, right? I'm not sure about his reach. He still may have had a shorter reach than Crawford, but Ray Leonard was relatively tall, maybe like 5'9", 5'10". Crawford's maybe 5'8". So, yeah, I'll just say Mayweather, I reckon, would beat Terence Crawford. Shout out to Ben for the super chat. I'm not sure anyone would wipe Crawford out, though. I think that's a tall order. Shout out to Bang for the super chat. He says, could it be Kambosos ruined T.O. mentally? Strange. He also says, what is the hold up with Jalalov's career? He is 30. First of all, thank you for the super chats. Could it be Kambosos ruined T.O. mentally? Well, T.O.'s come back in his last fight against Barboza and looked pretty good. So if T.O. was disturbed mentally by the Kambosos defeat, he's probably gotten over it by now. That's what I will say. I think that, or I suspect at least, not to make any excuses for him, Teofimo Lopez maybe isn't quite as dedicated. I know he's always in tremendous shape. He's always ripped to shreds and all that. The fighters in those weight classes generally are. But I'm not sure he's quite as hungry as he was when he fought, as he was when he fought Lomachenko. these American fighters in particular love the celebrity lifestyle. Have you noticed that? More so than British fighters tend to. The American fighters love the big chains and the jewelry and being seen everywhere and stunting for the gram and having the glamorous girl on their arm. And do you know what I mean? They get enamored with all that type of stuff. And that can be a real distraction from dedicating yourself to your craft. So I suspect that might have had an impact on Teofimo Lopez over the past few years. He certainly had contempt for George Kambosos when he fought him. He was acting like it was an easy blowout. And his dad was acting like that during the fight. His dad was screaming at him in the corner saying, knock this sucker out after a couple of rounds. That was actually bizarre. That was some of the worst corner work I've ever seen. Do you know what I mean? Some of the worst corner work I've ever seen was Teofimo Lopez Senior in that George Kambosos fight. Shocking stuff. So, yeah, odd. Definitely odd. But he seems to be somewhat back mentally. If he actually was gone mentally in the first place, he seems to be somewhat back now after that performance against Barboza. And as for Bakare Jalalov's career, I'm baffled. This guy should have turned pro. Well, he did turn pro quite a while ago. But because they changed the rules several years ago, you can turn pro and still compete in amateur tournaments, which I don't agree with, right? Like the Olympics. So he seems more interested in amateur boxing, winning all these gold medals. I mean, I've heard that he wants to go to the next Olympics as well. I don't know what's wrong with the guy. Maybe he's afraid of professional boxing. Maybe he doesn't trust his gas tank. Maybe there's someone in the pro ranks who he fears. I'm not sure, but it's the strangest thing ever. A guy like that, double Olympic gold medalist, loads of talent, massive puncher, in shape, can box. What's he waiting for? Why is he longing it out to get serious about his professional career? I wish I had the answer to your question because I'm just literally baffled. I don't know what that guy's up to. Maybe somebody in the chat has got a suggestion. Shout out to Fight Sport Talk. Hey, said he's doing a delicious Ori. I mean, maybe, but it's unfortunate because delicious Ori is not even in the same universe as a Bakare Jalolov in terms of ability. Do you know what I mean? So for delicious Ori, I think he's making the right choice. Whereas for Bakare Jalolov, it just seems like a shocking waste of talent. Matt says, I don't think Jalolov has the style for the professional scene, and I believe he knows that too. Might be the reason he's staying far away. And just because he's a double Olympic gold medalist doesn't mean that will transition well in the pro scene. Well, you know, you could be right. You could be right, but he has had, 13 professional fights now? I know it's against low-tier opposition, but I haven't seen anything in those 13 fights that's ringing alarm bells for me yet, as far as him not transitioning well to the pro game. He's knocked out perhaps not everybody, but most fighters that he's fought. So, I don't know. I really don't know what's up with the guy. Very strange. Lincoln says maybe he got KO'd in sparring. Who knows? Who knows? Your suggestions are as good as any. You know, Matt's suggestion, Linkage's suggestion. Matt says his promoter also doesn't know what he's doing. But it's disappointing because I was really looking forward to Jalalov's pro run, you know? I was really looking because he's a serious puncher. I like punchers. Anyway, let's move on to the last couple bits of boxing stuff here. Chris Eubank Senior. How many of you guys have seen this video? He's at it again. After apparently reconciling with his son, and I didn't really buy much into that. I spoke in a previous stream about how Eubank Jr. in his Diary of a CEO interview revealed that when he saw his dad, when his dad came to the hotel the night before the fight with Conor Benn, he asked his dad, "What do you want from me?" And his dad said nothing. Now, for him to even ask his dad that question, he must know that his dad is capable of something as low as asking to be paid to attend the fight. Do you know what I mean? Or else he wouldn't have asked that question. His dad answered by saying, "I want nothing from you." But again, as I said last time, it wouldn't at all surprise me if Turki Al-Sheikh paid him on the quiet so as not to upset the son. Do you know what I mean? Let's keep this discreet. Because his son then went on to say in the Diary of a CEO interview that if his dad had turned around and said, "I want money from you to attend the fight," then their relationship would have basically been irreparable. So anyway, Eubank Senior's back to his old tricks after apparently reconciling with his son, which I didn't really buy into. I think Eubank Senior turned up for the limelight, right? And I'm kind of surprised that he did, not because I don't realize he's a attention-seeking narcissist, because he is. I've been saying that for the longest. But because I thought he'd have a little bit more shame than to be, you know, pointing fingers at Gareth A. Davis and members of the media who were covering the fight and saying, I would never support such a fight. I could never be in his corner. I thought he had a bit more shame than to be doing all that and then still turn up on fight night and totally contradict himself. But apparently he doesn't. He has absolutely no shame at all. And so, yeah, in this video, he is saying that if his son fights again, he's basically telling his son to retire, not to fight ever again. And if his son does fight again, he's saying that he'll come out of retirement and fight. So he's basically trying to blackmail him to not fight again. I mean, talk about a control freak. Unbelievable. Now, look, Eubank Senior, as difficult as he must be to have as a dad, let's be real. Obviously, the wealth that he accumulated through his boxing career allowed his sons, you know, Chris Jr., Sebastian, who's now deceased. Is there a third son of the ones he has with Karen? I know he's got another son called Nathaniel something. I forget his name. Who he had with a different woman. But in terms of his like mixed race sons with Karen, is there a third one, or was there just two of them, Chris and Sebastian? Anyway, obviously he provided for them, and they had a great upbringing because of him. And Chris Jr. was able to have a lucrative boxing career because of his dad's name. None of that can be disputed. But Chris Eubank Senior must be a difficult person to be around. Let's be real. Particularly if you are his son, his wife. It's not often that I would side with a woman in a male-female relationship in this day and age. But I'll probably have to side with like, seriously, Eubank Senior must have been a nightmare to be married to. Eccentric, attention-seeking, narcissistic. He must have been a nightmare, bro. And now he can't help himself but try to be the center of attention again. I mean, his son must be thinking, or his son must have been thinking, okay, that chapter's behind us. With dad acting all funky and, you know, calling me a disgrace and all this type of, that chapter's behind us. But no sooner has the dust settled from that victory over Conor Benn, he's back at it again. trying to blackmail his son, trying to control him. You know, what a carry on. Shout out to Bang for the super chat. He says, Dusmatov also gave up on the pros, also an Uzbek. So you reckon it might be an Uzbek thing? Because somebody was telling me that I think it's the Uzbek government pay these fighters quite a lot of money to stay amateur. So that's another possibility for why Jalilov continues to do the amateur thing. If he's getting paid more to participate in amateur bouts by the Uzbek government, then he's getting paid for his pro fights, you know? Maybe he sees it as easier money. Only 3-round fights, and the Uzbek government's willing to bankroll him and pay him whatever in order to get the results. Because in Eastern Europe, not that in the West, gold medals aren't revered, but they're revered far more. Being Olympic champion is revered far more in Eastern Europe because of, you know, the legacy of the Soviet Union, where there was no professional boxing. So winning an Olympic gold was seen as like the pinnacle of everything in sport. And I guess some of the Eastern European, well, Uzbekistan's actually in Central Asia, isn't it? But you know what I mean? The old Eastern Bloc countries. And yeah, maybe the Uzbeks are still so in love with amateur boxing that the government's willing to pay him whatever. And he's thinking, well, this is nice and easy. Little 3-round bouts. You know, keep on winning Olympic gold medals and they'll keep landing my pockets. And I get all this glory. So, yeah, that's another possibility. Shout out to Bang again for the super chat. Shout out to Matt for a super chat. He says, what makes you believe that Eubank Senior didn't get paid for Junior? Junior is a narcissist and sociopath, like his father, can easily play the sympathy card. No, I think he did get paid. That's what I suspect. I think you've maybe misinterpreted what I've said. No, I suspect that Senior did get paid. I was just relaying what Senior said to Eubank Jr. in the hotel room the night before the fight. Junior was basically half expecting his dad to ask him for money. So he said to him, what do you want from me? And his dad said, absolutely nothing. But I suspect, I could be wrong, but I suspect that Senior was paid to attend. As far as Junior being a sociopath and Senior being a sociopath, I don't want to go that far. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't really have enough evidence to go that far, personally. But a narcissist, definitely, because narcissism is far more common than sociopathy or psychopathy. Far more common. There are loads of people, you know, you'll meet narcissists all the time. Narcissism is a spectrum, you know, it's a scale. It's not like all narcissists are equally narcissistic. Some of them are mildly narcissistic, some of them are a bit more. And on the extreme end of the scale, you've got malignant narcissists, which then crosses over into psychopathy. But Junior is cold. You know, he's not an emotional person. Probably not the most sentimental person in the world. But then again, maybe he has developed that character in order to deal with his dad. Do you know what I mean? Growing up. Because his dad must have been a headache for everybody involved. Let's be real. He must have been a headache. Yes, big up Bang. Mateo once more. In Circle says, Junior does seem cold, but I wouldn't call him a sociopath. Kyle says, Big Pun versus Big L. That's a really tough one. You guys always give me the toughest questions. Shout out to Jack Trussler. Says, big up Hatman. Would you rather be stuck in an elevator and listen to Don Charles or John Fury both talk rubbish? Definitely Don Charles. Definitely Don Charles. Not that I'm a fan of Don Charles, but he's not quite as horrendous as John Fury. Yeah, so I go Don Charles. On the big pun, big L question, Bang Mateo is saying pun easy. Hyro is saying pun without question. SF London Rex is saying big L all day. Shout out to Lawrence King for the super chat. He says, fan of Eubank Senior and all the antics. Rastafari, that's right. But I have a feeling he wouldn't have gone to the fight had he not been paid. Definitely an egomaniac. Without a shadow of a doubt, a massive egomaniac. Massive egomaniac. Yeah, I'm still kind of contemplating this. But what I was going to say actually about Eubank Senior is I like his antics. As much as he is an egomaniac and a narcissist, he's very entertaining to watch. There's no question about it. Living with him or being his son, probably not so entertaining. but watching from a distance is very enjoyable. So shout out to Lawrence King. Yeah, Eubank Senior definitely a narcissist. Other people are asking more rap questions. So I think that's all the boxing stuff. And hang on, let me just cover this last bit of boxing here. So this is the young heavyweight that Eddie Hearn has signed, 18 years of age, Leo Watang. This is apparently Eddie Hearn's answer to Moses Itauma. And as you can see from the title of the IFL interview, eventually me and Moses Itauma will meet. 18-year-old heavyweight Leo Watang on pro debut. If you haven't seen him fight, there are several of his amateur bouts on YouTube. He looks decent. Again, his talent doesn't jump out at me to the extent of Moses Itauma's talent, but he still looks pretty decent. He's a tall guy, maybe, I don't know, 6'5", 6'6", athletic, moves around the ring well, looks well schooled. So, yeah, interesting that Eddie Hearn has finally decided to invest in some grassroots heavyweight talent again. Johnny Fisher aside, right? Because that was just the Essex gimmick thing. Proper grassroots heavyweight talent. The first time Eddie Hearn's done this in a very, 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 very long time. So let us see where this goes. And give me your thoughts on this guy in the comments. Dari says, poor Karen, the stress from Senior could have given her alopecia. I'm telling you. Karen must have been a long-suffering wife. Obviously, she got money and all that kind of stuff, but living with that guy day to day must have been a challenge. There's no doubt about it. Must have been a challenge. All right, but going back to Big L and Big Pun. That is such a tough one because both guys had very short careers. Both guys only released 2 albums. And their sophomore albums were kind of patched together to some extent posthumously. So Big L died before The Big Picture, his second album, was completed. So they had to kind of, like I say, patch it together. And Big Pun died before his second album, as far as I remember anyway, which was called Yeah Baby, was fully complete. I think Big Pun's second album was a bit more complete than Big L's sophomore effort. But still, the second albums from both of them were not as strong as the first albums for different reasons. L because it was patched together, and Big Pun because he was in terrible health by the time the second album came out. Terrible health. Shout out to Lawrence King for the super chat. He says, Hatman, if you had to do a fight, where would you do your fight camp? And who would your trainer be if you can pick anyone? That's a very good question. So let's say I'm challenging for the heavyweight title. Where would I want the fight to be? That is a very, very good question. Where would I want the fight to be? If I can just go crazy, let's say Turkey Al Sheikh got involved and said, you can do this anywhere on the planet. I might do the fight in Victoria Falls, or not in Victoria Falls, but by Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. Yeah, imagine that for a backdrop. That'd be crazy. Rumble in the jungle style, because they haven't had a big fight other than Lewis Rackman, I guess, heavyweight fight since then. So Rumble in the jungle style, Victoria Falls. Who would my trainer be? It'd have to be Manny Stewart. Yeah, it'd have to be Manny Stewart. The late, great Manny Stewart. Shout out to Lawrence King for the super chat. Another one from Lawrence King. He says, there's a great freestyle with Big L and Jay-Z, which is iconic because Jay-Z is rumored to have... I didn't finish the comment there. I'll wait for Lawrence King to finish what he was saying in the super chat. Jay-Z is rumored to have... He wanted to sign Big L shortly before, and they were putting together a deal for Jay-Z to sign Big L shortly before Big L's death. Oh, okay, Luke, you think he's implying that Jay-Z had Big L offed? Well, the guy who apparently offed Big L was a friend of his. And the story goes that this guy had, like I say, was a former friend of Big L and also Big Lee, Big L's older brother. Okay, Lawrence King says, you know the sacrifices sometimes they make, those top guys. Okay, I see where you're going. Well, the story that you'll hear people from Harlem tell is that the guy who's supposed to have killed Big L was a friend of Big L originally and his older brother Big Lee. Somehow he fell out with Big Lee. And at this point, I think Big Lee was in prison. So Big L and somebody else went to go and shoot this guy, right? Or not, Big L weren't going to do it, but the guy that Big L was with went to go and shoot this guy. And I think they shot at him, but they missed. The guy got away. And so the guy then came back and did Big L in. So that's what people in Harlem are saying happened. Did Jay-Z have anything to do with it? If that story is true, then probably not. Let me switch up the visuals here to the appropriate video. The night flight. Yeah, I'm still contemplating this Big Pun, Big L question. It's such a tough question because they're two of my favorite rappers, you know? Damn, Funny Faces. He's got the bag and now I've got it. Shout out for the super chat. I'm going to read all your comments all night long, bro. Big up. Have a good week. You have a great year, my friend. Much appreciated. Like I say, any of your comments now, they're getting priority read out. So, Big L and Big Pun, two of my favorite rappers. Somebody says Turkey in the chat. There you go. It's Turkey Al Sheik's sock account. We got funny faces. Yeah, I'm going to say that Big Pun and Big L, two of my favorite rappers. Similarities in their careers, the way they went. Both died young. I'm going to say I prefer Big L. The reason I say that is I think he had more memorable lines. Big Pun had a more complex flow and probably a more impressive flow, truth be told. Big L's flow was more... I mean, Big L had a great flow, but it was more formulaic and it wasn't as complex as Big Pun's flow. But Big L just had a very sharp wit. Big Pun had plenty of wit as well, but the way Big L delivered his lines, he was like this cocky young guy with this really sharp wit, and his voice, because he had this kind of slightly high-pitched voice, actually accentuated the sharpness of his rhymes, if that makes sense. So I'm going to say I preferred Big L, because I still think about a lot of his bars now. His bars are so funny. I mean, violent and whatever, but funny bars. So, for example, he did a song with Shaheem. Shaheem, I think, was Ghostface from the Wu-Tang's cousin. I want to say it's his cousin. And on that song, it's called Furious Anger. Big L says, I'm trying to think of the line now. Ninjas be wanting beef. No, how's it go? Nah. If you want beef, ninja, then... He says it in a New York accent. You want beef, ninja, then cough it out. Oh no, you got something to say, ninja, then cough it out. Because ninjas be wanting beef, but when I pull out the heat, they willing to talk it out. What is there to talk about? You was just fronting. No, it ain't nothing. Ain't that something? And so, yeah, lines like that are what I'm talking about. The wit. Getting into a little road rage confrontation or something, you know? Some guys acting like a tough guy. Man backs out the burner. And then he's like, no, whoa, let's talk it out. Oh, now you want to talk it out. Ain't that something? You wanted beef before, now you want to talk it out. Ain't that something? Big L, the rebel type, rougher than a metal pipe. F a Benz, because I can pull skins on a pedal bike. And that freestyle that somebody mentioned earlier on, Big L said something like, turn your tux red, far from broke, got enough bread, and mad hoes. Ask Beavis, I get nothing but head. Effing chicks is a rule. If my chick think I'm loyal, then that itch is a fool. Plastic spoon, there you go. I'm quick to blast the goon and break her mother effer like a plastic spoon. There you go. Even when he said, how's it going now? I better flea hops, headphone free blocks, L-Gate, rappers heart pumping like Reba. I got the wild style, always been a foul child. My guns go boom, boom, and your guns go pow, pow. Stuff like that. Yeah. Shout out to Lawrence King for the super chat. He says, Hatman, how do I get these XP points? XP points? I'm lost. What do you mean XP points, bro? I'm slow. Yeah, so I'm going to say I kind of prefer Big L. I'm not saying Big L's better than Big Pun or vice versa, but I just think I prefer Big L. He just made me laugh more, you know? His bars are funny. And he had this like cocky young guy persona. Yeah. Lawrence King says, it's saying in your chat at the top, XP points, and I can see a leaderboard. Oh, for real? I'm not seeing that on mine. XP points. What do the crowns and rankings mean? You have to ask the people that are putting them up. I think the king is for the Lawrence King, right? The crown for the Lawrence King. They're atting him, I think. Hang on, where are you guys seeing those? Oh, now I see it. Okay. Oh, now I see it. Now I see it. There was something I had to click. A community thing that I clicked. Now I see it. Okay, with the XP point. I see what you're talking about now. Yeah, I've got no idea what this is. It's the first time I've noticed it. Is it a new feature? Has it been there the whole time? I have got no idea. I'll have to look that up. What is that all about? Oh, hang on. No, it's actually got a information thing here. Question mark. It says, what is the leaderboard? A place for fans to stand out in the community. The top 3 special badges in the live chat. It resets every stream, so you can always try again. How do you get on the leaderboard? You'll need to collect experience points or XP. Here's how to get them. Send live chat messages, send super chats, and super stickers. There you go. That's it answered. Oh, interesting feature there. Never noticed it before. Shout out to Lawrence King. He says, no. The guys with the most XP points have a crown. Oh, is that what it is? Okay, I thought you guys were using some kind of emoji or something. Ah, I see. All right. See, I'm slow. I'm only just catching on now. You guys are educating me. Shout out to Lawrence King once more. But yeah, the Big Pun, Big L thing. Yeah, big up Devin. What I will say is, as much as I'm saying that I prefer Big L, Capital Punishment, Big Pun's debut album, was definitely better than either of Big L's albums. Capital Punishment was a monstrous album. Capital Punishment, I think, is one of the most underrated albums, maybe, in hip-hop history. At the time, it was received well, but people don't really talk about Capital Punishment anymore. But that was a great album. I remember I went to, I think it was HMV to buy that album, the first version of the album I bought on cassette tape. And there were different covers for the album. The one I got was the one where you got some Latina woman with big Zampas and Big Pun standing behind her, and he's like covering her Zampas with his hands, with his big fat hands. Yeah, I got that cover on the cassette tape. But yeah, that first album for Big Pun, Capital Punishment, classic. And that was one of the albums, I think that was the album really that made me first want to quit rap. When I heard Big Pun going in on every single song, when I was listening to that album, every track that would go by, I was hoping that the next one would be weak. I was hoping that the next track will be a disappointment. So I'll be like, okay, at least he's not consistent. He can only be good for, a couple tracks here and there. But no, Big Pun went in on every single track. on that album from start to finish. And halfway through, I was like, nah, bro, I gotta quit. I gotta quit rapping, because if this is where the level is now, I thought last year, 96, 97, I was just about keeping up with the new rappers coming out. But when Big Pun took it to a whole nother level, I was like, no, I gotta quit. That's it. He made me, as much as I enjoyed the album, I felt demoralized because his level was so high. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I was thinking, if he's this good now, how good's he going to be in 2 years? Little did I know he weren't going to live much more than 2 years. Louis Mensa says, I watched the Down Goes Johnny live stream back about 50 times. Might have got me the XP. Devin says, Big Pun versus Big John in a Chinese restaurant. All you can eat. Who wins? I got Bosch. I'm going to go Big Pun, you know. I'm actually going to go Big Pun. In an eat-off between Pun and Johnny Bosch Senior, I'm going to go Big Pun. Big Pun got to 700 pounds by the time he died. 700 pounds. And in the United States, especially back then, it's still the same to some extent now, but I don't think it's quite as crazy now. The portion sizes in the United States are a madness compared to the UK. An absolute madness. So in the 90s, the portion sizes in New York City, well, it's not like Pun confined himself to New York City, but the portion sizes, oh my days. The stuff Big Pun would have been eating back then would have blown your mind. NJ says, yeah, I live in Texas. It's crazy. Especially crazy in Texas. Down south, the portion size is really going to be crazy. Matt says, remember supersized McDonald's menu? Yeah, but McDonald's in the UK, the stuff is smaller than the US. So I don't remember, or I was never in the US at the time when they were doing supersized US portion sizes. I mean, the portion sizes in the US are big enough, but yeah. Somebody else asked another question, another rap-related question. I forget which rappers they were comparing. So I answered the Big Pun, Big L, but somebody asked another rap question. Who was it? Who versus who? JR says, I know a guy who got thrown out of a pizza buffet, a Pizza Hut buffet, 6'7", over 400 pounds. SF says Mobb Deep versus MOP. I prefer MOP. And I'm a big Mobb Deep fan. But I don't listen to that much hip hop these days. But when I do listen to hip hop, I'll listen to MOP. Warriors, that album right there. If I'm working out or something like that, I'm trying to get myself into a hyper mindset, it's got to be MOP Warriors. The only thing I don't like about MOP Warriors is they've got an R&B track on it, about 2 tracks in. So what I did on my version of it, I just removed it. The MP3 album. I just removed that track out of there, the R&B track out of there. Okay, yeah, Styles P versus who? Because somebody was comparing Styles P to somebody else. That's a question I actually asked a friend of mine the other day. I asked him Styles P or Big L, and we both went Big L. But then I think I asked him, what was the other question I asked him? Was it Beanie Siegel or Styles P? Beanie Siegel or Styles P? And I think I said Styles P, but I think because Styles P is more consistent than Beanie Siegel. But Beanie Siegel, when he was on form, was probably better than Styles P, if that makes sense. Because for me, Beanie Siegel's Jadakiss diss is my favorite diss track of all time. Beanie Siegel, he's the only person to get a win over Jadakiss as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, he's the only guy that got a win over Jadakiss. Crazy. Jake says, thoughts on early Eminem, Hatman? I thought he was incredible. I didn't hear the Infinite album when it first came out. Nobody did. I was super underground. But I did hear the Slim Shady EP. The first time I heard Eminem was on, I've mentioned this before, the first time I heard Eminem was on a DJ Greenpeace, who was a British hip-hop DJ. And I used to go down to Soho. There were various hip-hop stores down in Soho that would sell mixtapes. And I bought this DJ Greenpeace mixtape, and on it was Brain Damage by Eminem and the original version of Bonnie and Clyde, Just the Two of Us, with the original beat, which was better than the album beat, album version of the beat. When I heard those two tracks, I was blown away. I was like, wow, totally blown away. And I loved the first, actually his second album, the Slim Shady LP. I loved that album. It was so creative. It was so refreshing and different, Because up to that point, other than maybe like the Beastie Boys, Third Base, most of the white rappers that were coming out were trying to fit in with like black street culture and stuff like that, like Vanilla Ice and whatever. And the Beastie Boys and like Third Base, they were trying to do the whole like middle class kind of suburban nerd thing. But Eminem came out like trailer trash. That was his thing. And I'd never heard anybody rap from that perspective before. And it was very, very refreshing to hear a man talk about, trailer trash life and getting bullied at school. And he was very creative with his stories and all that type of stuff. So, I thought it was incredible when Eminem first came out. It was very, very refreshing. Shout out to Louis Mensa. He says, horizontal versus vertical fist left hook differences. Well, it's just a matter of whether your the fingers of your fist are facing the floor or facing your body. As far as the effects, in textbook boxing, you're told to rotate the punch as you land it. So it's going to come across vertical, right? And then when you land, you're supposed to twist it so it's then horizontal. Very few people actually do that. Mike Tyson used to do it. If you see Mike Tyson punching people, he would twist his wrist, right? To get that, they say you get an extra bit of power. I did experiment with doing it here and there, but for the most part, I would do the vertical rather than the horizontal. And I get plenty of power throwing a left hook like that. But it really depends on what suits you. I've seen some people throw the left hook horizontal, and it just looks weird. It looks like they're not really getting the kind of power they could get if they throw it vertical, what they call a shovel hook. I think some people call it a shovel hook. But you experiment with it and see which allows you to generate more power, because at the end of the day, everybody's body is different. Everybody's arms and kinetic chain is slightly different. But I prefer to throw it vertical, so with the knuckles facing my body. I prefer to throw it that way. I think most people prefer to throw it that way. But yeah, experiment with twisting it as well. Shout out to Louis Mensa. Shout out to George for the super chat. He says, Hatman versus Don Charles and the Cobbles. Who wins? Hatman wins all day. Come on now. That old man ain't beating me. That Oh man ain't beating me. But then again, I got to watch out for his son now, innit? Because he pulls people's eyeballs out. Son's a bad man, apparently. But the old man, dust him off no problem. He'll probably DM me now asking for asking me to back up the chat, innit? Just like the old days. Spamming my inbox with requests. Message requests. He was so bent out of shape. Oh my gosh. Set says, Hatman, Dr. Umar, thoughts? Yeah, I get this question quite a lot. People asking me about Dr. Umar. What can I say about Dr. Umar? Shout out to Ben for the super chat. He says, Hatman versus the governor, who wins? Lenny McLean? In a boxing match, I beat Lenny McLean all day in my prime. On the cobbles, bro, I'm not even going to tell you that I would win. I don't know. I mean, I'd try my best. But he was ferocious on the cobbles. He was often roided up. And he had tremendous rage. You know, like real tremendous rage. So, I don't know. In a boxing match, I'd beat him. Yeah, I'd be confident of beating him. But on the cobbles, I'd say a prayer. I definitely have to say a prayer. Because he was a vicious guy on the cobbles, Lenny McLean. Yeah, Louis Mensa says, if McLean sees red, it's over. The man was juiced up to high heaven. I lost. What was the question I started answering before? I've forgotten. Should I scroll back up to see the question? I've lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh, Dr. Umar, thank you. All right, where do we start with Dr. Umar? First of all, he is a very, 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 very good orator. He's a very good talker, very articulate, charismatic, intelligent. But unfortunately, there's something not right there. We all know about the school, right? That he's been raising donations for well over 10 years. Well over 10 years. He said the grand opening of the school was going to be in 2013, folks. 2013. You can go back and there's people that do videos about it. There's a guy called Lennon Honor. Yeah? This guy was saying that the grand opening was going to be back in 2013. Where the hell is the money going? Where's it going? The grand opening was supposed to be, another time, a previous year. And he said, we had problems with the contractors and they didn't do a good job. So then the money was wasted on those contractors. And now we've got to get new contractors in. There's something seriously amiss there. Yeah? So, as other people are saying in the chat, I suspect he's a scammer. What he's scamming for, there are some people that speculate that he's got some type of serious addiction, substance abuse. So yeah, while he is a very good orator, he appears to be all talk, all bluster, and no real substance there. Is Dr. Umar just like an evangelical huckster? Yeah, he is. Yes, he is. He is. He's just the Pan-African version of these mega church pastors, who expect all these donations so that you can go to heaven. I mean, literally, there are evangelical church pastors, you can watch them on YouTube, who say in order to get your blessing and go to heaven, you need to give them $1,000 each. They're so brazen, it's incredible. There's even one of them who literally is called Creflo Dollar. Man's got money in his name. Unbelievable. And yeah, Dr. Umar is like that. He is like that. All I can tell you is he is quite funny. Whether he intends to be or not, I don't know. The whole snow bunny thing is funny. Let's be real. You know, the snow bunny thing is funny. When people clip bits of Umar's live streams where he's talking about the snow bunny crisis and all that, that stuff is funny. And what's also funny are the black men, the so-called bunny hoppers, who, you know, go back at Umar because they're funny as well. So for those who don't know, Dr. Umar has come up with this term for white women. He calls them snow bunnies, right? And he's always like attacking black men for dating white women, you know, for interracial dating. He calls black men who date white women bunny hoppers. And he talks about, I saw one clip where he said he visited Manchester in the UK. And he said there was a blizzard in Manchester. Or the bunny hopping. It did crack me up, bro. It cracked me up. But then you see the black guys in the comments, yeah, who date white girls, and they say stuff like, if it ain't snowing, I ain't going. Snow bunnies for life. You see all these black guys in the comments. Hilarious. Talking about snow bunnies for life. If it ain't snowing, I ain't going. Some of them call themselves winter soldiers. That's another bit of jokes there. Winter soldiers. Yeah, the whole thing's all very silly, but it is comical. Dari says snow bunnies, heaven snows. Yeah. But that's a saying now. If you go on an Umar Johnson, and whenever there's even a video that's got nothing to do with Umar Johnson, if there's like a black guy dating a white girl, somebody will turn up in the comments, particularly on Instagram, with like an Umar Johnson gif saying, "My name is Umar Johnson and I do not approve this message." That's right, Dr. Woos. Winter soldiers. Oh my days. If it ain't snowing, I ain't going. Yeah, the whole thing is hilarious. Jackie Boy Johnson says, who is the funniest guy in boxing? For me right now, I've got to say Lawrence Okolie. Lawrence Okolie is low-key hilarious. Yeah, low-key hilarious. With his deadpan humor. Devin says, React post snow bunnying Madonna. God, I can't. Madonna doesn't get the status of snow bunny. See, snow bunny sounds like something like cute and attractive. Madonna. Now, you can't even call that a snow bunny thing there. You can't call a literal mummy an ancient dusty mummy. No, you can't call that a snow court. I don't know what that is, bro. Dust. Coffin dust. Coffin dust. That's what Madonna is. She ain't no kind of bunny, bro. Oh my days. She ain't no kind of bunny. But yeah, Lawrence Okolie is hilarious. He is actually hilarious. I don't know where he's been hiding his sense of humor for all these years. But over the past year or so, it's come out and he's, you know, This is if he's doing a stand-up routine every time he does an interview or is at a press conference. All right, we've got a wannabe Diddy in the chat. Coming at me mad suspect. I don't know what's going on there. Is that Fleece Johnson? Fleece Johnson's soccer account, is that what it is? That's coming at me mad zesty. Chill, bro. In it, man thinks he's Diddy. Asking 50 Cent to go shop. Let me take you shopping. Yeah. Have I seen Jeff Bezos' wife? I don't think so. But what I did see today, O'Neill says, if it ain't snowing, I ain't going. I'm telling you, that line cracks me up every time I read it. If it ain't snowing, I ain't going. But Carpen says, how much have you seen of Hearn's new heavyweight? Anything stand out? If you're talking about, God, I've forgotten his name already. Leo Atang, is that the guy you're talking about? 18-year-old just turned over. Light-skinned guy. He might be mixed race. What do I think of him? I've seen a few of his amateur bouts and he looks decent. And it's interesting that Hearn has decided to actually sign some grassroots heavyweight talent for the first time in many, many years. Again, Johnny Fisher notwithstanding, because he was only ever, a little gimmick fighter. But some proper domestic heavyweight talent for the first time in a very long time. So yeah, I've watched a few of his amateur bouts and he looks pretty decent. Marlo says, views on Delicious Ori retirement. Yeah, I spoke about this on the previous stream. I think it's for the best. Because if you've got all that amateur experience and you're turning pro in your late 20s and you look that awful on your debut, something is seriously wrong. You're not supposed to come out of the amateurs with all that experience and look bad on your debut. It doesn't even make sense. So something is wrong there. And he never looked good in the amateurs, to be fair. When I watched him in the Olympics, I thought, wow, this guy's Tony Yoka level at best. A style really suited to the amateur boxing, not pro game. Shout out to Bullocks. Have a good one. Fee Khabib says the Talma hype is getting out of control. He's going to get humbled like Dubois did if they rush him. I don't think they're going to rush him. I think all the talk of Hrgovic and Bacoli and all that is just clout chasing by Frank Warren. I don't think they're going to rush him at all. In fact, Frank Warren did an interview the other day where he was basically completely dismissing the Bacoli fight now. So he's gone from saying he would put Itama in with Bacoli next in a heartbeat to a week or so later saying that we don't need the Bacoli fight. Bacoli's rubbish. Do you know what I mean? So it was just clout chasing. He was never going to do that. Yeah, I've seen the Candace Owens stuff with Macron's wife and all that. I've seen all that. Yeah, she's on all types of smoke. I don't know whether there's any validity to what she's saying, but she's going there. How about that for a wild question? Would you rather smash Maggie Thatcher or Queen Elizabeth II? Why would I have to smash either of them? But if you were forced to, choose between smashing one of them, you definitely have to say, well, when they were young at least, in their 20s, and then you'd pick Queen Elizabeth in her 20s. Because Maggie Thatcher's always been butters, even when she was young. But at least Queen Elizabeth, when she was young, she looked all okay. So you gotta go with a young queen, innit? Dominic says Queen was buff back in the days. Man saying Queen Liz was a badass back in the days. Or buffers. How did Maggie look back in the day? Terrible. There's pictures of a young Maggie Thatcher. Yeah, she was never nice. So Malik is saying he would have smashed Princess Diana 100%. Well, so many people did, right? So many people did. That's why she upset the royal family so much. It weren't just the fact that she, split up with Charles and started bad-mouthing him, but she was also sleeping around all over the place. And the public all, were all exposed to it. And for the royals, that was like, extremely shameful. She had affairs with so many guys. Will Carling, you guys remember that? The rugby player. Yeah, he was smashing Princess Di. Will Carling, like a regular. Where was Will Carling from? I'm not sure whereabouts in the country he's from. He was smashing a commoner rugby player was smashing a member of the aristocracy, Lady Di. Yeah, crazy work. And the public all knew about it, That to the royals, that must have just been the most humiliating, shocking thing. Someone says Candace Owens or Kemi. Definitely Candace Owens. Kemi ain't nice at all. That's not even a question, bro. Kemi or Candace Owens? Nobody likes Kemi. Kemi's dead, bro. Candace Owens or AOC? Now, AOC is insufferably awful as a person, but she is kind of hot. Like, let's not play games. Or maybe she just scrubs up well. I don't know. But the pictures and video, the short clips I've seen, she's all right. Might have to go with AOC. Yeah, she's an awful person and just talks the most amount of rubbish. But might have to tap that. You know? K1 Green says AOC is too old. How old is she? I don't even know how old she is. How old is AOC? $35. I could do 35, upper limit. You know, that's all right. could do AOC. What's her first name? Is it Amanda? Her surname's Cortez, right? Now Feed Khabib is just getting savage with it now. I'm not even gonna answer that. That's too much. Now you're getting sadistic with it. That's a straight up sadistic question. Dogboon says Hatman 35 is not old. It's the upper limit for me. I'm trying to smash anyone older than that. Nikki or Foxy Brown? Nikki all day. Foxy Brown ain't nice. Mura's man says 35 is geriatric pregnancy. I mean, not like I'd be trying to get her pregnant, but you know, I get your point, yeah. Goozy's got Candice over AOC. I can respect it. I can respect it. Iron Mike says Clarissa Shields or Alicia Baumgardner. Preferably neither. But what I will say is Alicia Baumgardner's got a better face, but Clarissa Shields got a better body. Clarissa's got some thickness to her. Baumgardner's a bit gristly. Her body's gristly. You know, I don't wanna lay down with a woman and her body's like gristly and hard and that. That's why I don't like female athletes generally. Got gristly bodies, you know. Julia says Remy Ma. You know, if she was still under 35, I'll probably smash Remy Ma. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm just basing it on looks, not her attitude. Her attitude is terrible. For that reason, I wouldn't smash. But in a hypothetical, if Remy Ma had a tolerable personality, I'd smash. Yes, I'd smash. Shout out to James Madden. AJ says, like my women, soft to the touch. And me too. A woman's body's not supposed to be hard, bro. Mora's man says Megan Thee Stallion is actually nice without the makeup. I'm not. I think I've seen her, but I can't even remember what she looks like, so I can't really say with her because I haven't seen her enough times to remember what she looks like. Now I'm not even going to answer NJ. That one is too Yeah, that's too demonic. That one is way too demonic for me to even answer that one. That's demonic, bro. I'm not even gonna answer that. I can't even answer. That's a demonic one. See, Kayvon's a savage. Kayvon said Greta all day. Yo, Kayvon Greed is a savage. Yeah, that's crazy work, bro. How dare you indeed. Yo, where's Umar Johnson at? Where's Umar Johnson? My name is Umar. My name is Dr. Umar, and I do not approve this message. Evil Uncle Phil says that Latino woman that sometimes presents for the zone is something. Can't think who you're talking about there. Michelle Joy Phelps. Nah, bro. Nah, bro. Michelle Joy Phelps. The makeup on her face is so thick. It's like somebody got a cannon full of paint and blasted it in her face. Like, yo, the makeup on her face is crazy thick. There you go, Seth. This is not a government-funded activity, and I have the right to discriminate. All right, Mike says, Michelle Joy Phelps always reminded me of a Transformer for some reason. Yeah, that's because of the makeup thickness. Dear, oh dear. Mark Hatch says, I agree, but she looks fun for one night. Seth says, Hatman prime Alicia Keys or Mariah. I gotta go Mariah. I've never really found Alicia Keys attractive at all. I mean, I'm not that keen on Mariah either, but if she had a better body, I'd go Mariah back in the days. Definitely over Alicia Keys. Mora's man says, loved Alicia Keys, to be honest, very pretty face. Hey, different strokes for different folks, bro, but I'm not really into her look. Maya Jama or Kim K? I go with Maya Jama. Set says, Hatman single mom or corn star. What's the difference? What's the difference? Shout out to Charles B in the chat. What's the difference, bro? Yeah, both are cooked. Both are fully cooked. Stick a fork in. Copen says, hasn't been a black TV show since the real McCoy left our screens. Actually, there was. there was like an inferior version of the real McCoy called, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was another like black British TV show. God, I can't remember the name of it, but it had a bald presenter that had like lines on his head. Certain black people have got like lines on the top of their head. I can't remember what the name of that show was called. Blouse and Skirt. I swear it was called Blouse and Skirt. And that was after, I swear it was called Blouse and Skirt. That was after Real McCoy was over. Blouse and Skirt. Charles B says, what were you discussing? We're discussing, I mean, these guys are throwing out names of various celebrity women and asking who we would smash. And the most savage suggestion so far, who did somebody say? Greta Thunberg or who? I didn't even answer that one. That was demonic. I'm not even answering ones like that. Greta versus Oprah. Yeah, that's what it was. Who would you rather smash? Greta Thunberg or Oprah Winfrey? Yeah, I'm not even going there. Casa says Oprah. How old is Oprah? She's in her 70s, bro. Either way, it's hellfire. Kyle says Oprah got cheeks. She got shriveled up prune cheeks, bro. Lenny Winganu says Nicki Minaj or Megan Thee Stallion. Like I say, I don't know Megan well enough. I have seen her, but not enough times to really remember what she looks like. So I'd probably just go Nicki on default. Dog Boone says Greta or Hillary Clinton. You know, a young Hillary Clinton, I'll go with a young Hillary Clinton. I would go for young Hillary over Greta, definitely. Yeah, Kayvon really likes Greta. Man's doubling down. He's going Greta again over Hillary. Nah, bro, that's not right. Yeah, young Hillary was decent. See, Charles B knows. young Hillary was right. Nah, come on, see? Another savage one is coming in. How about Katie Hopkins versus Macron's wife? That's nightmare fuel, bro. That's straight nightmare fuel. Oh my gosh. Katie Hopkins has got a face like Clint Eastwood. You know when Clint Eastwood is in the desert, in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and his face gets all like burnt and shriveled from the sun? When that Mexican guy drags him through the desert? That's what Katie Hopkins' face is like every day. Cassie or Shields? Cassie, for sure. Yeah, Cassie's pretty. Craig says, just logged in and first words I hear are Hillary Clinton or Greta Thunberg. What's going on here? I've been asking myself that question. What is going on here? Marlo says Cassie or J-Lo in the freak-off situation. Well, I don't want to be in a freak-off situation. I'm just one-on-ones. One-on-one Cassie or one-on-one J-Lo. I go prime J-Lo. Yeah, Craig's going Hillary. There you go. You have to go prime Hillary over Greta. Anything else would be weird. Malik says, I would pound a young, I guess you mean Pinky, until I'm doing prison time for life. Yeah, I never really liked Pinky like that, you know. I never really liked Pinky. To me, she looks like a little pig or something. We're talking about the corn star, Pinky. She just, I don't know, it's like a little pig. Gap tooth and like a pig type nose, and I never really liked her like that. Marlo said, yeah, she was like a little pig. And she looked even more like a pig the older she got, because she kept piling weight on. And by the end, she was literally Miss Piggy. She was literally Miss Piggy. Mo Slater or Pat Butcher? Mo Slater. Which one was Mo Slater? I can't even remember Mo Slater. Because I'm definitely not going near Pat Butcher. Dolly Parton or Hillary Clinton? Well, Dolly had the Zampas, right? So you might go with a young Dolly, maybe, because of the Zampas. But they were fake Zampas, right? They were plastic. Dolly didn't have real Zampas. How about Dolly Parton or Barbara Windsor in her prime? Barbara Windsor or Dolly Parton? Someone says Dolly's got rhythm. See, there you go. Craig knows. Yeah, that's a close one. Barbara Windsor or Dolly Parton, that's a close one right there. But people are saying Barbara easy. Barbara's getting it. Yeah, Barbara in the Carry On films, innit? That was her prime. When she was rolling around with my man. What's his name? Sid. What was he called? Sid something? With a dirty laugh? Sid James, there you go. Sid James. Yeah, from the Carry On films. That was the prime Barbara Windsor. AKA Peggy Mitchell. Oh, my bad. Malik's talking about Pink, the pop R&B singer. Oh, okay. Okay. Not the corn star. Okay, I didn't realize. I thought you'd missed the Y off the end. Okay, you're talking about the singer. All right. Get out my pub. Kayvon says Pink looks like a dude. Shots fired. Erykah Badu or Pam Grier? I'm gonna go Erykah Badu. I'm not really that hot on either of them, but I'll go Erykah Badu. I don't like Pam Grier's nose. Yeah, I don't like Pam Grier's nose. So I'm gonna go Erykah Badu. Kyle says Erica Badu is literally a witch. Hey, she might be, but I like her nose better than Pam Grier's nose. If we're keeping it strictly superficial. Iron Mike says Nigerian women or Jamaican women. In terms of looks, Nigerian women. In fact, in terms of everything, Nigerian. No. In terms of looks, Nigerian women. I don't like dating Jamaican women or Nigerian women. All right. Both of them have got crazy attitudes, beyond what is acceptable. Although with Nigerian women, it's not as much the attitude. It's not like an aggressive attitude so much. It's just like a bougie attitude. Nigerian women are extremely bougie. Crazy bougie. Jamaican women are not really bougie. They're more ratchet. So yeah, pick your poison. Boozy or ratchet. Bougie or ratchet. That's what you're choosing between when it's Jamaican versus Nigerian women. The Nigerians are bougie and the Jamaicans are ratchet. Code says Zimbabwean or Ghanaian? Zimbabwean, definitely. Zimbabwean girls are prettier than Ghanaian girls. It is what it is. Janet Jackson or Cardi B? I go Cardi B, Yep, I'm going to go Cardi B. Never really liked Janet Jackson like that, even when she was young. Charles B says Somali or Kenyan. I go Kenyan. Yeah, I agree with Mura's man. Cardi B, Janet's nose was weird. Yep. Linkage says Ghanaian got better bodies. I don't know about that. Plenty of Zimbabwean girls that have got banging bodies. Definitely. In terms of girls that I've been with, the girl who had the craziest body that I have ever laid down with in my life was a Ghanaian girl. I'm not going to say whereabouts in London she was from. Because this girl, because of how crazy her shape was, she was famous in her area. Not for being like a super hoe or anything. I don't think she was that much of a hoe or anything, but just because her shape was so crazy, yeah, all the guys in her area were trying to holler all day, every day. Her body was crazy, bro. Crazy. And I'll tell you a story about that Ghanaian girl. Because I knew her for some years, yeah? But she was kind of like in this on-off relationship with some guy, right? And I think this was like her long-term boyfriend or whatever that she was in this on-off tumultuous relationship with. So obviously during that time, I just kept my distance. But then the girl, and I hadn't heard from her for years, all of a sudden she messages me out of the blue. Yeah? I ain't heard from this girl for years. Like, she don't just message out the blue. Didn't hear from this girl for years. And she's messaging me and she's asking, can she come round to my house? And I'm like, She's never asked to come round to my house. Do you know what I mean? We're not on those kind of terms. I've never been on a date with this girl. We just, met each other a few times in social situations. And, we had not each other's number or whatever, but it never went anywhere for various reasons. But she messages me out the blue, texts me out the blue. And She says, yeah, can I come over and stay around at yours? I was like, what's that all about? And it was my birthday coming up. Yeah. So we got talking and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I want to send you something for your birthday. And you know what she sent me? Yeah. She, I think she actually emailed it to me. She asked for my email. This would have been maybe around 2011, 2012. She emailed me some video of herself in like lingerie. You know what I mean? Doing whatever in her bedroom in this lingerie. And I was like, wow, where is this coming from? Obviously, I sensed the trap. Yeah. Like you man are saying, I sensed the trap. So I went on it. I went ghost. I disappeared. I was like, nah, something is not right. Anyway, fast forward, however long it was. Let's call it 10 months. I can't remember if I saw her first or I chatted to her in a text message or whatever first. But literally 9-10 months later, she had a newborn child. 9-10 months later, she was walking around with a child. So what it is her long-term boyfriend, yeah, she got pregnant by him and she wanted to pin it on me. That's what her plan was. I was like, this trifling Jezebel tried to, yeah. She was scheming and plotting to pin the baby on me. These trifling hoes. Yeah. Now, did I still smash? Yes, I did. A couple years later, I smashed. But I took precautions. But I did smash. Down the line. No, I didn't get anything. I took precautions, bro. See, Dominic A, he wants to go smash now. He wants to see if the body's as crazy as I'm saying it is. Trust me, that girl's body was a madness. A madness. And in fact, her body was such a madness that she was actually a homebody. She liked to stay at home most of the time because she couldn't leave her house without getting harassed left, right, and center. Obviously, she lived in a predominantly black neighborhood and her body was so crazy. She didn't even like going down to the supermarket or the local shops. Yeah. But the body was crazy. And she was a Ghanaian girl. Yeah, she was a Ghanaian girl. So I can attest to the Ghanaian girl figures. I can definitely attest to that. Evil Uncle Phil says, yeah, South African women and Ghanaian women go cheek for cheek is competitive. You got to throw Ugandan women in there as well. Telling you, Ugandan women, crazy. Marlo says, favorite girls from the Caribbean in terms of looks, body, Bayesian girls. Bayesian girls, most of them got amazing skin, great figures. Yeah, Tanzanian women as well, definitely. But in the Caribbean, I'm going Bayesian girls, Barbados. Everyone looks so healthy in Barbados, you know? Everyone's got a glow about them in Barbados. They look very, very healthy. Because they don't do, well, most Bajans don't do all that weird bleaching. You know, like Jamaicans do all the bleaching stuff, makes them look horrible. Makes them look sickly and unhealthy. Yeah, Bajans don't really do that. Indian women or Japanese? Gotta go with Japanese. Taylor says, I hope no females are reading the chat. Dominic says, Barbados, yeah? Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. Be prepared when you go there, you know. Be prepared when you go there. Even at the airport in Bridgetown, some of the staff members were catching my eye. I mean, like, yeah, they got some figures in Barbados, bro. Trust me. They got some figures over there. They're well fed, you know? Iron Mike says, if only Japanese women had body, they'd be undefeated. Yeah, not many of them have got them curves, but some of them, you do find a few unicorns. When I was working in luxury retail, there was a Japanese girl there. She was like really tall as well for a Japanese girl. She must have been 5'8", 5'9", this Japanese girl. And she had a body, bro. Natural, no, you know, funny business. She had a body. And you know, the demeanor of Japanese girls is very enticing because they're so feminine. Do you know what I mean? They've got like little voices and they have these like feminine mannerisms and everything. It's like really enticing. Yeah, because when I was working in that particular store, I was the security manager, supervisor, and all the security guys were trying to smash the Japanese girl. They're all trying to just smash the Japanese member of staff. She was like a sales person. Someone says Filipino women are usually thick. That's right. In fact, there was a Filipino girl there too who was mad thick. Yeah, there was a Filipino girl there who was from South London. In fact, she was there when I was working there. It was Louis Vuitton on Sloane Street in Knightsbridge. That's where we were working. And the Filipino girl was in there on the ground floor. That's where she worked. With like purses and handbags and whatever. Selling those. When Kanye West and his mum came in. It was Kanye West, his mum and his stylist. And this Filipino girl from South London was such a fangirl. When Kanye West came in, he was looking at sunglasses, like on the ground floor back then. They had the sunglasses on the ground floor, Louis Vuitton, in Knightsbridge, Sloane Street. And the Filipino girl was serving, you know, Kanye and whatever, and his mum and that. And she was so giddy with excitement that she like ran behind the counter and picked up the store phone and started calling her friends. You never guess who I'm serving right now. Kanye West is in here. And in fact, Kanye's mum stole some Louis V glasses. She put Louis V glasses on off the rack. I think she took the glasses that she had because she came in with like sunglasses on, and she took them off. Maybe it was mistake. It was a mistake. I don't know. Maybe she took them, but she took them off and put them on the rack and took a new pair and left with them on. Yeah. The Louis Vuitton Don with the Louis Vuitton mum. Mura's man says Japanese women are so rare here in the UK though. You find a lot of them in central London, in the rich areas. Yeah, if you go to central London, you'll see Japanese women around there. Yeah, you go to like the Piccadilly area, Bond Street area, Knightsbridge, you'll find Japanese women around there. Kensington area, yeah, around there, you'll find them around there. Got Afro Jam in the chat. Indeed, go to the sushi restaurants. Go to Yo Sushi, Itsu. Go to the sushi restaurants, you'll find them. That's right, Triple R. Yeah, there was a Latino girl who was bad, who worked in a shoe store that was opposite Louis Vuitton on Sloane Street. And all the man them was shook to chat to her. It was so disappointing. I was the only one that had any cojones, man. It was crazy. The other guys were all shook. And you know when you're standing around with a bunch of guys and you're all like, you know, talking yourself up the way guys do, especially young guys. And everyone was talking about how they're going to go and speech the girl and this, that, and the other. And when it came to actually do it, the girl was too she was too bad for these guys to handle. I was like, you lot are soft. This is crazy. And they wouldn't go and chat to her. Unbelievable. One of them, yeah, one of the guys who was actually from Birmingham. I won't tell you his name. But he was a black guy from Birmingham. He pretended, because we were all watching from the mezzanine. Yeah, or I was on a mezzanine watching to see where he was, to see if he'd come out of the back door and then gone into the shop to talk to the girl. And he literally got on the radio and he's like, I'm in there. And I'm like, I never saw you go in. He's like, what are you talking about, bro? I'm in there. I'm trying to chat to her now. And somebody spotted him like hiding behind the car, smoking a cigarette, trying to fake it. Unbelievable. God, I was ashamed of my team that day. So I had to go in there. But by the time I went in there, because I had the last break, right? Because everybody was going on their breaks on a rotation, you know? So I had the last break. I went in there. But when I went in there, she literally hid because obviously she realized that something was up. Because all these security from Louis Vuitton are coming in. Or at least milling around outside. Because there was one of the guys who's from Peckham. Yeah, who was a friend of mine. He didn't go in. He just was milling around outside. Even he got shook. Yeah. But he was at least walking up and down outside the shop and looking in. I think he was trying to get eye contact with her and maybe like wave to her first. That was his like technique. And if he got eye contact and some kind of response, maybe he would have gone in then. He weren't raggo enough to just go straight up and yeah, deal with the business. So yeah, all these guys were wet, soft. So I had to go in, but by that point, she was shook. She realized that something was up because, yeah, and she didn't come out. I must have stayed in there for like, and imagine it's a woman's shoe shop. They don't sell men's shoes, and it's a small shop. And I've gone in there with my big self, yeah, and I'm like standing around in the shoe shop, and the other staff member, the other girls looking at me like, what the hell is he doing in here? And I'm standing around waiting for the Latino girl to come out and she's hiding. So, yeah. Shout out to Dynamic Clips for the super chat. Could Prime Paul Williams have beaten Mayweather at 147? You know, theoretically, I probably would have sided with Mayweather, in all honesty. But it's a fight Mayweather should have had. So I don't want to give him credit that he didn't earn. So let's just leave it up in the air. I think Mayweather could beat him, but that's a fight he should have had and didn't take. But shout out to Dynamic Clips for the super chat. Shout out to D-Man. He says, I'm worried about Moses getting too much hype. It's going to get to his head. It could well do. It could well do. I mean, whenever he gets praised, all the way through his career so far, he's been quick to say, I can't allow that to go to my head. But at some point, you have to figure that it's impossible to have it not go to your head. Do you know what I mean? He's a human being at the end of the day. But it comes with the territory. You have to be able to deal with the hype, and if you can't, you're going to get a wake-up call. But he's young enough, if he does get a wake-up call, to be able to come back. So if that does happen to him, setbacks pave the way for comebacks. That's right, self-made. All them need to be benched. Need good attackers on the field. I was the only striker. Can you imagine? I thought I had a team full of attacking players. They were talking like they were about it. They were talking like they were about it. But when push came to shove, when it came to crunch time, yeah, the man went missing. And there was another girl. I was moving to all kind of girls around there. Opposite Louis Vuitton, there was another shop, and there was a girl in there who might have been, she was Latino-ish looking, and then there was a Nigerian girl in there. I'm not gonna say her name because you might be able to track this girl. You know, some people are like investigative journalists out there. But there was a Nigerian girl, pretty Nigerian girl, who worked opposite. And it was one of them ones where we were always eye flirting. Yeah? Because I'm standing on the front of Louis Vuitton. You know, obviously there's like glass door and whatever. I'm standing in front of Louis Vuitton, and she is standing in the shop opposite Louis Vuitton, which again was like a woman's wear. I don't think they sold menswear there. I think it was woman's wear. And we would like eye flirt for the longest time. She was like in there as a salesperson, and we were eye flirting and all that stuff. And truth be told, I think she might have actually approached me, you know. I think she actually came over one time when I was standing on the door and actually approached me and introduced herself to me. I swear that's how it went down. Oh, the good old days. Shout out to D-Man for the super chat. He says, have you also seen Dan Hooker's backyard boxing in New Zealand? No, I haven't. Tell me about it, please. Dan Hooker's backyard boxing in New Zealand. I don't think I've seen it. Yes, I've heard about Delicious Ori. Spoke about it on yesterday's stream and also earlier on in today's stream. I think Delicious Ori is making the right choice. Coppen says, do you reckon any of your man them from back in the days watch your videos? Surely they must recognize your voice. Oh yeah, they all sussed it was me years ago, bro. I never told any of my friends that I started a YouTube channel. But literally one by one, they all started calling me up and messaging me like, yo, I never knew you did YouTube. So they all caught me immediately. All of them. I was hoping to do it on the quiet, but they were like, nah, there's no mistake in that voice. Shout out to Muraz, man, for the super chat. Big up, big up. Afro Jam says a lot of guys just don't have any real persona or true confidence. That's a whole fact. And back then it was the glory years, you know? Back then, before social media, before dating apps, dating was all right. Even in London, you know? The girls weren't acting all funky. They weren't covered in tattoos. They weren't asking you to cash app them money before a date. They weren't expecting to be taken to the Dorchester or whatever. Yeah, back then it was normal. Afro Jam says they need a drink in their system. Yeah, especially if it's like a really hot girl. Yeah, the hotter the girl, the more hesitant the guys are going to be in it. Can you blame them though, getting rejected over and over? Well, it was basically like a challenge. So it wasn't even about necessarily getting the girl's number, although that would have been the ultimate win. It was a challenge between the guys, the security team, yeah, to see who can go in there and chat to the girl and see if you can get a number. It wasn't necessarily about going all the way. It was just a challenge, right? Who can get a number or whatever. Did I go out with a Nigerian girl? Yes. Not like in a relationship, but, link up. Dynamic Clip says, too many sugar daddies now. Yeah, these guys living out in Dubai are flying, girls are getting flued out, innit? These girls are getting flued out to Dubai. The hottest ones are getting flued out to Dubai by millionaires. And since that has been happening, oh my gosh, the attitude has got bougie beyond all imagination. Copezilla says flown out. Yeah, but the youngsters don't say flown out, they say flued out. D-Man says, Hatman, give it a watch. 120 kilo Polynesians. More entertaining than a domestic. I'll check it out. I'll definitely check it out. Big up D-Man. Dan Hooker's Backyard Box in New Zealand. I'll definitely check that out. Island Grill says, are there black girls in Rika? Yes. There are black American girls in most of the tourist areas who come over here all the time. But particularly in tourist season, which is in November through to about April. You get a lot of black American girls. But then there is black Costa Rican girls who, most of them have a Jamaican background. So basically, on the Caribbean coast, you've got a lot of descendants of Jamaican immigrants. Yeah. Which is kind of a bit weird the first time you encounter them. Because they're switching between speaking Spanish and speaking Jamaican patois, in English. So there's basically like a Jamaican Costa Rican community, which is mainly based on the Caribbean coast. Places like Puerto Viejo. Afro Gem says there are people who are not Jamaican. You're talking about Jafacans? Yeah, there are some black Costa Ricans who are not Jamaican that pretend to be Jamaican. That's true. There are some of those who try to blend in as part of like the Jamaican community because black people are a minority in Costa Rica. So the ones who are not of a Jamaican background, sometimes try and blend in with the Jamaicans with the Costa Rican Jamaicans, that's right. And pretend to be Jamaican. Tosserman says Jamaican and Costa Rican mix sounds mad gangster. Well, Costa Ricans are not really gangster, you know. Costa Ricans are very laid back people. Very laid back, kind of happy-go-lucky people. And that's actually why a lot of the Jamaicans ended up moving here. Was because of the, pura vida. That's right. If you talk to a lot of the Jamaicans here, they will tell you that they moved there because they like the laid-back nature of Costa Rican people. Rather than having to deal with hothead Jamaicans all the time back a yard, they like the friendly and calm nature of Costa Rican people. Self-Made says, what's up when a girl gets a new Birkin bag after a trip to Dubai? Okay, you know what's up when a girl gets a new Birkin bag after a trip to Dubai. Yeah, you know what's up. You've only got to go to the Instagram and see a girl on a private jet, and you already know what it is. Yeah. These girls don't have money to be flying on private jets. So if you see a girl, in fact, not even just a private jet, if you see a girl and she's like under 30 and she's traveling in business class or first class, bro, you know what it is. Most of these girls don't have jobs that can, you know, where they can afford to be paying 2-3 grand for a first class ticket. They don't have that. Think about it, the first class ticket and then the holiday itself, accommodation and all that on the other end. Nah, bro, they're not spending 5-6 grand for a holiday. Most of these girls, they ain't got that kind of money. So if you see Instagram pictures and she's in first class, you know what it is. And definitely if she's on a private jet. Shout out to D-Man for the super chat. He says, what's your thoughts on Magic, Dark and Good? Have you heard of the book of Abramelin? Abramelin? I don't think so. If I have heard of it, I've forgotten about the name of it, because I have heard about some magical books in the past. What are my thoughts on Magic, Dark and Good? I think that sorcery is like a knife, right? It can be used for good or bad. It all depends on the intention of the practitioner. A knife can be used to prepare your food, to create tools and what have you out of wood. You can even defend yourself with it. But it can also be used to go out there and rob somebody. It can also be used to, you know, take somebody's life in a robbery or whatever, or just for whatever reason, for some kind of bad motive. And I see magic in the same way. Am I wrong? Maybe I am wrong. Or maybe I don't know enough about it. But that's my current perception it all depends on the intention of the person who's using it. I don't think it's necessarily evil in and of itself, which obviously the Abrahamic religions do think it's evil, in and of itself, innately evil. I suspect that's probably not the case. I think it's like a tool that can be used for good or bad. In fact, I remember also when I was working security, there was an Indian guy that I worked with, hilarious. I spoke about, unintentionally hilarious. He wasn't telling us any jokes, right? But he was, have any of you guys seen Van Wilder, Party Liaison? Any of you guys seen that film? Van Wilder, Party Liaison? There's an Indian character in Van Wilder. I forget what the character's name is. If anyone's seen that film in the chat, remind me of the name. Taj, thank you. Taj. Shout to Marley Worth. This guy that I worked with, I swear to God, he was exactly like Taj. Now, when I was working in this particular store, again, it was on Sloane Street. It was me, a Ghanaian security guard, a white South African security guard, and Taj from Van Wilder, right? that was the crew. Me, the white South African guy who was from Durban, the Ghanaian guy from Accra, and then this Taj character. The banter that we had, me and the Ghanaian guy and the South African guy were having so much banter in there. It was wrong, the kind of banter we were having, particularly with the not gonna lie, the jokes at Taj's expense were crazy. But the way he behaved and the way he spoke and everything like that, bro, it just invited jokes. It invited banter. It was too much. You know, you're dealing with someone who's that naive, you can't help but tease him and stuff like that. And yeah, the white South African guy was a joker. Like, we used to have so much banter in that in that shop, being a South African guy. And there was also a Brazilian guy. I spoke about this in my Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. There was a Brazilian guy in there as well, and he was jokes too. Now the chat is frozen here. I think I gotta restart this. Where we at? There we go. But yeah, the banter we had in there, crazy. But the Indian guy, he used to get stressed out because of all the banter. And one day, the Ghanaian guy who was the supervisor in that store, he must have seen the Indian guy out back. Obviously, he's a Hindu. And he was, I don't know, he was doing some incantations. He described it. The Ghanaian guy described it as incantations that Taj was performing out the back before he came in the store for his shift. Was he trying to hex us? I don't know what he was doing, bro. But he had some kind of, like, I don't know what it was, wristband that had crystals on it or something, and he was performing some type of incantations and speaking stuff to the sky and all this business. Yeah. D-Man says, Hatman, you might have peed off Taj. I think we did that day. And many other days as well. Yeah, Hindi voodoo. Yeah, because they have magic. They have spells and all that stuff in Hinduism. They do all that. Seems like everyone's gone to bed. D-Man says, in Africa, they are so big on black magic. Yeah, that's right. Juju, as it's known throughout much of Africa. Juju. All right, since everyone's bailed out and gone to bed, maybe we should wrap this up. Okay, D-Man says in East Africa, it's called Uchawi. Is that how you pronounce it? Uchawi? Yes, so peace to everyone. It's been a great stream. And special shout out to those who donated via Super Chat. It's got to be a record for the Super Chat. Funny Faces, he's got the bag. Funny Faces has got the bag. I may have to edit a lot of this stream out, but I'll download the whole thing before I do and upload it unedited on my Patreon page. But yeah, shout out to everyone for joining the conversation. It's been loads of fun. If you haven't already, please stick a like on the stream. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy. I'm out.